What follows is a history of environmental policy in the United States. Back about 1962, we learned a pesticide that we use on our food is bad for the earth and bad for the brain. It's called dichlorodiphenyltrichloroethane. So from 63 up to 65, they passed bilateral laws to keep us alive, to check pollution levels and to dial them back, called the Water Quality and the Clean Air Acts. Now, a couple of years later, in 68, a lot of hippies left cities to make their own place, living off-grid by rivers and lakes, inspired by a picture of Earth from outer space. But at the same timer, in 69er, there were pillars of smoke from a chemical fire that kept getting higher and hotter and bigger because of oil on the surface of the Cuyahoga River. And so everyone, hippies or not, felt that it was time to make a change. And so on April 22nd at the start of the 70s, since Earth was feeling kind of more hellish than heavenly, the people had a lot of strong words to say, and the government agreed to call a day Earth Day. But since having a day doesn't automatically fix it, a new agency came from none other than Nixon. He called it the EPA. He put it on while on a break from dropping more bombs on Vietnam. And in 73 and 74, the Arabs with oil said oil no more because of Israel's war, which kind of took us to shul because we finally got started thinking about alternative fuel. But things got worse before they got greater, because the same year we learned that the ozone layer was forming a hole at a very broad span because of chlorofluorocarbons out of aerosol cans. And since emission levels still steadily climbed, then President Carter back in 79 said by 2000 fuel would be 20% clean, but that actually took us until 2018. Jimmy said he'd be the first to try it out and put solar panels on the top of the White House, but later Ronald Reagan said fuck that crazy shit and he took them back down in 1986. And while Reagan was decreasing the EPA's funds, tons of polychlorinated biphenyl was being dumped on a county called Warren, demographically black, and civil rights leaders were the ones who fought back. But meanwhile, the ozone hole kept spreading, so they all agreed to close it up in 1987. The twins won the series Mom and Dad Made Me, and Full House debuted on ABC, starring Bob Saget. And since the temperatures in general by then were increasing, they made a climate change panel called the IPCC. And 3 years later, in 91, they caught Pee-wee at a porno theater and said, "I see your pee-pee." The UN had a climate talk in 92. In 94, we got genetically modified food. In 97, a climate pact was reached in Kyoto. The world said, let's do it. The US said, I don't know. And as the research predicted, throughout the early aughts, the weather got weird and treacherous and hot. Earthquakes and tsunamis in the Indian Ocean and hurricanes along the Gulf Coast and in New Orleans. And some were believers and some were contrarians. And a former vice president became a documentarian. And by 2011, the population had risen to the boggling quantity of about 7 billion. In 2015, in Gay Paris, the world convened for the UNFCCC. The UNFCCC, or UNFUCK, to see if the world that we fucked could be unfucked. But within 2 years, the US said peace, yo, leaving Paris without paying their bill at the bistro, which, as you can see, kind of fits our pattern of taking one step forward then a leap ass backwards. And in the past few years, we've laid more pipeline and shaved more years from the end times timeline, and those who decide things are not too decisive and not too diverse and all too divisive. Some cite science and outright reject it, but those with the least will be the most affected, and those with the most are the least repentant. And what happens then, I don't know. It's the present.